Hello, feisty people. Welcome to episode 2 of The Feist, where we talk your favorite sports with your feistiest friends. Did I get the intro line right,
The
Kelly?
gist, yeah. You didn't like my intro for today's episode was where today's show exceeds even our capacity to care about ultra
I
running.
still care about
Because I
ultra
feel
running.
like you still care about ultra running. Because I felt like after how many hours were we at Western States on Saturday? 3 a.m.
I
to
don't know, 20 maybe.
11,
The
20?
the
Yeah.
funniest thing was to me was that we covered a race from essentially we arrived at 4 a.m. and got home at midnight, right? So that was like
Right.
our day. And when I flew out the next day, the race was still going on.
Right.
It's like
Right.
it's so epic. Obviously, we saw the winners finish. But yeah, no, I still having seen it and having had time to recover from seeing it, I feel slightly more invested in ultra running than I did before we went.
An ultra running?
Mhm.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, so we are going to obviously, I feel like we should tell people, be talking about Western States, the 100 mile today.
Yes.
We have a ton of interviews we did there. We're going to hear from all those people. But we're talking all things running today, I feel like. I feel like this is a running episode.
It's a running episode, yeah. True to our your favorite sports part. And there will be times in future where we talk about other sports,
Other sports.
like rugby or soccer and things like that. But yeah, we're staying kind of within our endurance sports lane for this second episode.
It's because we went up last week to Western States. We went up a few days early because there's like a big trail running conference. A lot of people gather. It's a thing.
When you
And
say
so we were
up,
there.
like
Oh, sorry. I'm saying up because from my house it is literally like up the mountains. So you just drive up like in
and
a
for me it's
vertical
down because
direction.
it's south, which obviously
Right.
makes a ton of sense. Yeah.
So we drove from my house up the mountains to Truckee to Tahoe. But I was about to say on Thursday, as we were walking over to listen to the women's pro panel, Faith Kipyegon
Mm.
was about to do her like sub 4 attempt in Paris. And so we were pulling up our phone to watch it, and literally like everyone around us was also watching on their phones,
Yeah.
which was really like I felt like we had to like all watch, wait a second, and then we can start the pro panel.
They really should have just projected it in that main
They should have,
square
yeah.
at Palisades Resort and then gone back to the pro panel.
It's true.
Yeah.
Because it did feel like it was a good like other, we're going to talk like fastest mile effort, and then we're going to talk like 100 miles, other end of the spectrum.
Totally. Yeah, and so Kelly, just for like so for anyone who doesn't know, Faith Kipyegon, did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, Kipyegon, yeah.
Yeah. So I was just like as we were watching it, so it was basically there was this attempt to go under the 4 minute mile. And it was backed completely by Nike, right? And even
Right.
if she had done it, it probably would not have been official. Is that right?
Yeah, so it would have counted for record. I feel like people are a little familiar with the Breaking 2 marathon attempt for the men a couple years ago,
Yeah.
where Nike pulled out all the stops to get why am I losing his name now? Kipchoge to run a sub 2 hour marathon, and it would not have counted for an official record, right? Because they had these pacing strategies. They were like it was like win aided. They had like a drafting car. You know what I mean? Like they had all this stuff that was not legal in record attempts. So this is I don't want to say the women's equivalent because it's not exactly the same, but this was like that, right? Where they took all this science and technology and kind of like threw it behind a big name female runner to try and break a big barrier, right? Which in this case was the 4 minute mile.
Right. And what was some of that? Like, I know she had a special suit, she had special shoes, she had pacers surrounding her in kind of like an aerodynamic formation. What were some of the other, like,
Yeah.
technology things they were doing?
So the pacing was the big one. There was this paper written back, I'm sure it was written before, but it was released a few months ago that kind of hypothesized using like aerodynamic models on the computer that if you had the right pacing formation and like
Right.
number of people that you could shave that a sub 4 minute mile is possible, right? Because Faith has run a 407 mile before. She has the world record, so that had been the fastest mile. And she's run she also has the world record in 1500 meter, which I feel like, to get super detailed, the 1500 meter is run more often at elite competition.
Yeah.
So so if you did the math and was like, well, if she continued running at that pace for 100 more meters, it was a little faster. It was like a 406 equivalent, but So she was still like pretty off of 4 minute miles. My point. She was like 6 or 7
Right.
seconds off.
Well,
Yeah.
for sure, and I think that was a lot of what people were saying was, like, actually taking 7 plus seconds off of a mile is a big ask, no matter how much
Yeah.
technology is involved. But also, like, I was just thinking, okay, before that, like, did people go 407, 408, 409?
Right.
But that wasn't actually the case. Like, her 407 run was, like, a big jump up from Sifan Hassan, who ran 412, right? And so, like,
Mm-hmm.
there was, like, already the women were taking these big chunks off.
Sure.
And so it in with view of that as well, like, I think they were leaning a lot on their technology.
Yeah. So it's the pacing was the big one. That was where this paper was like,
Mm.
okay, if you had the exact right pacing in this computer model, you could go from 407 to 4.
Yeah, and to be
That
fair,
that was
watching
like the
it,
theory.
like, you know,
Yeah, so
it was good
she had what
for
was it, 11 pacers?
Mhm.
Yeah. Um she had 11 pacers and it was like a really crazy formation where cuz they ran it on a track. So they weren't just in front of her, they were also to the side and behind her to like
Mhm.
help with the wind turbulence. Uh
Yeah,
I was a little disappointed that the Pacers waited until she started running to then get information. I felt like they should have been information already, but that's
right.
just my that was a nitpicky point.
Yeah.
She also had fancy shoes that were not totally legal, but that's neither here nor there. She had like a speed suit. She had a 3D printed bra, which actually is like the coolest thing. I don't know if that made her faster or not, but
I know.
like it just was cool.
I fully do not understand how a 3D printed bra makes her faster, but it does sound cool.
I think it like didn't like absorb sweat was the idea, so it didn't get heavy.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That was the like because in theory you really have to be like pretty warmed up to be like ready to go for this kind of an effort.
Yeah.
So you would kind of be already sweaty and everything. But yeah, so that was the idea, but it was still like a big ask
This Kelly, this is why I don't run fast because my bra
because
is so heavy. I mean, jeez, who knew?
geez. And they sold. I mean, there was in a stadium in Paris. They sold. I actually think they gave away tickets. But you could get a ticket to go watch her at like 8 p.m. on Thursday night in Paris. I don't think the weather was ideal. It was a little warm,
Mhm.
but you know.
Cool. And then
Anyway, we were watching it.
there was a thing, wasn't there,
Well,
about how they started the clock?
oh well, yeah. I was gonna say. So we were watching it,
Yeah.
and she was pretty close. I mean, obviously, like you don't generally get faster as these things go on, and she was like right on the dot.
Yeah.
So it was like, yeah, you'd have to speed up, and that's like probably not going to happen.
Yeah, she
Probably.
only slightly I mean, she really was on those, like, 1 minute per lap pace,
Mm-hmm.
right?
So
Like,
technically, a mile is like an extra 9 meters.
where the extra
So
9
she
well,
start
including the 9 meters. She was on the
right,
like, she was really, like, right on the rivet of the pace. Like, she would have had if she kept it up, it might have been, like, a 4:01 or a 4:02.
right. And I think some people were like, well, if she hadn't really gone for it, she could have run like a 4:03 or a 4:04. But she really went for it, and then the last 200 meters, oof, it looked ugly, Sarah.
Oh, it was as someone
Brutal.
who knows, like, anyone who knows what it's like to run on the track and has felt that pain of, like, anything, like, beyond an 800, oh, man, I felt that in my core watching her. She had really and this is someone who obviously knows how to get the best out of herself and how to push herself on the track. Like, this is and when someone like that really has, like, spent everything, like, that it was really incredible.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Now you're making me think about that feeling where
Oh,
like
yeah.
your legs literally won't move and people are patting you're like, "Oh no."
Yes. Yes.
It looked like that. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so she ended up running a 4:06,
Which was
which
still a
yeah, to what I
world
was saying,
record, but
which is yeah, but it
unofficial.
doesn't right. It's still like the fastest any woman's ever run. But yeah, I think some people are hoping like, oh, well, if she had paced it a little more, maybe she would have run like a 4:03. But
Mhm.
that's not what this was about, man. This was
Mhm.
about going for it.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
But yeah, then I was telling, so if you were watching for our fans who
Mhm.
were feisties, who were deeply also engaged,
Mhm.
the time came up when she crossed and it was like 406.9 or something like that. And then they corrected it down by half a second. They were like, oh, 406.4. And you were kind of like, okay, what? Like maybe I misread that. Apparently, Nike didn't start the clock at the gun. Like, you know, a gun goes off, the clock starts. They started running the clock when she crossed the start line. Like, so it subtracted her reaction time to the gun, which is weird. That's like not how running works.
Right. But like there's so many
Right.
aspects of this that are not how running works.
Not running
So
works.
I mean, at this point, it's just like fine, just like cruise through the start line to get the like.
That's why I was like, why don't you at least then give her give her a few meters and like do a running start? If you're just gonna do that,
I was like jog into
like,
it, you know.
Yeah. I mean, if we're just making up rules, why not, right? Like,
There are. So I mean, yeah,
yeah.
I get it. Although it would have looked weird. It as it was. It
I mean,
seemed
not
weird.
weirder. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of people. I mean, we had, I think, in ours, a lot of people said they had like very mixed feelings about it because there's certainly,
Yeah.
you know, Nike has like a mixed history
Mhm.
for sure with like female
With female athletes, yeah.
Yeah.
Which like,
and that's not valid. Like, that's totally valid. It's not
Yeah.
not valid as a complaint. But I am totally here for like, let's make a spectacle of like a female athlete.
right.
People were into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were. Do you think they'll do it again? Like,
Well, so she is going for the actual world record in the 1500 because that's what's run in international competition.
Yeah.
This weekend.
Okay.
This upcoming weekend.
Yeah.
At the whatever they call it now, the pre-classic, the meet up in Oregon.
Yep.
And she's gonna try and run an actual certified world record.
Okay.
Which will be interesting to see. It's the same thing happened with the 2-hour marathon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then the second time they did it, like a year later, however many months later, they didn't have all of as much crazy stuff. They just had like some pacers, and they did it on the streets of Berlin with like crowds.
Mm-hmm.
And he did it. He went like whatever he went, 159 something. So maybe she like actually, maybe it's really like in your head. Maybe all this science and technology.
Yeah.
And it's really.
Oh, I think she should try again. She'll get it this time because like there's so much pressure on the first time. Like that was the other thing that I really felt like watching her like jog out into the stadium and all those people there. And like there's all of this stuff on you. Like you're wearing a freaking 3D printed bra, you know, like this is pressure. And then now that she's already kind of like quote unquote failed, even though she set a world record, and I'm saying failed as in like I love her effort was amazing, and she failed on that goal. Like now the pressure there's like a pressure valve that's released, like it's off. I bet she could go. I bet she'll like crush this 1500
this weekend in like regular competition.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's so funny is like now she's gonna be wearing legal spikes, no pacers, and watch her just like kill it.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I am all for, you know, everyone on their phones watching. Let's hype people up.
It does. Yeah, for sure. It creates something for everybody to get behind and talk about and watch together. Yeah, it creates unity like sports should in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but we were in Western States while we were watching it.
Yes.
Or we were in the Palisades Resort in Olympic Valley before Western States while we were watching it. And I feel like that is, in our running theme show here today, the other end. Like, is it still running? Like so many, like they were power hiking up the really steep stuff.
Oh, like is 100 miles still running? Is that what you're
asking? Obviously they were running. I'm not saying they weren't. I'm not saying the effort.
Right.
I am in no way diminishing the effort. But would you still say it's like, it feels like a totally different sport than mile running is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I think it's a different athlete with different skill set. There's no like they were definitely running, and I feel like that's a big way that like ultra running has evolved over the last like decade. Is like I think there used to be a lot more power walking, you know, and now you're just out there. Like the guys, they finished in 12 hours, right?
No, they finished in 14.
14. So you're like, you know, you're putting together like 4.5 hour marathon after 4.5 hour marathon out there, like in the most insane trail up and down.
Right.
Like they are running a time that like most average people run for like a flat marathon on like pavement, you know, and then they're doing it again and again and again.
Oh no, they definitely are. I'm like, but it's like a different. Well, I guess when I'm saying running, I'm just talking about like the little actual motion. Like we were down, like they had to ford a river. Right? Yes. Like Like that was
Really
part of
different
it. And they had
kind of
like we
running.
were at
Yes.
right. I'm saying like that's a different kind of
Yes,
running. Yeah.
absolutely. Yes.
There was like the part where we were up at the escarpment, which is kind of like the high point. Like I'm pretty sure you had to use your hands on some of those rocks.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a different thing.
It was hard for me to hike up, and it's at altitude,
Right.
right? So where they start is pretty like it's like just under 7,000 feet, and then they sort of
Mm-hmm.
climb to like close to 10,000 feet, I think. And that was like hard for me to even, and some of those sections like you just described, like that little technical section on the way up is like I wanted to stop during my hike, and here they are just like running. It's
Yeah.
nuts. Mhm.
So we do have, I feel like, the expert in Western states. We talked to Corinne Malcolm. I really enjoy somebody introduced us at Western States as the Corinne Malcolm of triathlon,
Mhm.
and so I feel like now we are bringing Corinne to all of you as the expert in trail
Right, and
running.
how is like what is the Corinne Malcolm of ultra running? What does that mean? Like, what is her background exactly?
Yeah, so Corinne has done Western. She's a very, very good runner. She was a pro runner. I think right now she's been like a little injured, and so she still runs, but is like kind of working her way back to the Western States. She does the live broadcast at Western States. So if you watched, you saw her kind of for 20 hours talking. She also puts on the like a lot of events to get more women into the sport, more women from a variety of backgrounds into the sport. Like we put a lunch on with them in the
Mhm.
days leading up to Western States, for all the women there. That was really fun, really great. We like met a lot of women who were there for Western States or who had been there for the weekend before, like the shorter race, Broken Arrow, which is like even more technical.
Yeah.
Anyway, separate point. Um, and so then so Corinne's kind of like the expert, and so we asked her to give us kind of like the background and everything people need to know about this race. What do people need to know about Western States?
That's the $1 million question, I think, a little bit. I mean, Western States is one of the oldest 100-mile races in the world. I think it's our 52nd year making this race happen. It started as a horse race, actually, the Tevis Cup, which still goes on today. We're standing in Olympic Valley, California, and the runners on Saturday are going to run 100.2 miles from here to the Placer High School track in Auburn, California.
So they go up?
They go up for a ways. It's technically a net downhill course. But they do have to go up. They crest over 8,000, 9,000 feet in the high country, and then they do a lot of descending and a lot of ascending all the way along the American River Canyon to make their way to Auburn. So they do get lower in elevation the entire race. The race is known for its wicked downhills. They're incredibly long. It's known as a quad destroying course. Yes, there still is, I think, 17,000 feet of climbing in it, but there's over 20,000 feet of descending in it. And so the downhills is actually what gets a lot of people in this race.
Okay. All right, and it's obviously the oldest, and that's part of what makes it such a big deal. But why else is it like such a big deal? Like it's what everyone's heard of if they've heard of 100-mile races.
It is really hard to get into, which I think is part of the reason why it is so hyped. And it's really a special experience. There aren't many races in the U.S. that have a grassroots feel still, but you'll see at Forest Hill on Saturday what makes this race so special. The community that comes out to cheer these runners on, to take care of them, is really next level. It feels like going to a race in Europe with the crowds and the cheering, but you're still in the middle of nowhere, California, in like little tiny Forest Hill, California. So I think that is incredibly special, but it takes people 8-9 years. I just had lunch with a woman, Makiko, who I think next year will be her 9th year applying to the lottery, so she should get in. But it takes almost a decade to get into this race now, and you have to run a qualifier every single year to apply to the lottery, which is a 100K or 100-mile race from a very long race list. But it takes years and years to get in. The competitive field is also a highlight of the race, where we probably have 30 men and 30 women that are going for those top 10 spots. The top 10 spots are really important because you get an automatic entry into the following year's race. So you do well enough, you get to run another 100-mile. But you don't have to race your way in. So that's the other component for the professionals in the fast end of the race, is that there's a golden ticket series where 2 to 3 men and 2 to 3 women at a select group of races over the course of the year, mostly 100Ks, but 100-mile at Javelina in Arizona in October, qualifies them into the elite field here. And so people chase golden tickets throughout the course of their season to try to make it here to Western States. So I think it's the competitiveness at the front end. It's the years it takes to get into the race and the time you've put into it. There's a woman from San Francisco named Jen who's running this year. In the decade she spent putting in for it, she's moved back and forth across the country twice. She's gotten a graduate degree and she's had 2 children. And it really summarizes the experience that people go through working to get to Western states. And it's not less special to get to do it later on. There are, I want to say, 18 people in the race over the age of 60 and 7 men over the age of 70 in the race, including our oldest woman in the race this year is 65 during her first ever 100-mile. And then the oldest man in the race, trying to be the oldest ever finisher, is 80 years old, Nick Bassett, and he's looking to finish the race on Saturday as well.
Who's your pick for the women's race? All right.
I mean, that's like picking my favorite child. Is that fair? Is that fair to pick my favorite child? I don't think I'm allowed to go on the record to do that. I mean, if I pick with my heart, honestly, some of my best friends include people like Abby Hall and Keely Henninger. And so I would love to see them run the races that I know they're capable of here. Abby has not yet nailed that 100, and it's been due to execution, not fitness or ability. So I would love to see her run. She was on a golden ticket quest this year, and she actually got a ticket because MK Sullivan is pregnant. And MK deferred her golden ticket spot, and that ticket rolled after Abby had already made another attempt to try to qualify. So that story is just super beautiful. And then Keely Henninger finished 9th here in 2021, and then in 2022 and 2023, she had catastrophic injuries during the race. She rolled her ankle really badly and actually was non-weight bearing for, I think, like 6 weeks after the race. And then in 2023, she fell and dislocated her shoulder at mile 80 of the race before having to withdraw ultimately. And so getting to see her come back this year after pacing her good friend Rachel Drake to a top 10 finish in 2024, it's just like, I want her to have her day. She's also a medical student right now, so it's like, come on, Keely. So lots of cool stories to root for out there, from the very front of the field all the way to the final finishers in golden hour on Sunday. And that's maybe the other thing that's really important about Western States, welcome to my monologue, is that golden hour is the final hour of the race. It's hour 29 to hour 30. You have to be to the finish line in under 30 hours, and it is always a nail biter. There are people who always finish after that cutoff as well. But I will be back on the track to do commentary for the final 2 hours of the race, and I will be in tears for a large part of it, because these people's stories, they've been out there fighting for 30 hours, and to watch them make it to the track and be celebrated by everyone who's already finished the race, people who have had to drop out of the race, and all their friends and family is really, really special. So I would actually say, you can tune into the finish of the pros, but tune into the final hour of the broadcast on Sunday, because that is really like the magic of trail and ultra running.
All right, so obviously we talked to Corinne before the race, and now it's after the race, and I do feel like you need to be like, spoiler alert, her friend Abby Hall had a good race.
Corinne was vibing with the universe and vibed correctly, because Abby went out there and showed everyone what's what.
Yeah. So both Abby and Keely ended up in the top 10, and we will talk a little bit more about the pro race. But I want to start with this whole like lottery system thing. So I live near this race. I have a lot of friends who've been putting in for the lottery for years. So I had like heard all about this for a long, long time. You came in and were like, what the fuck
What's happening? Like, how do people, they don't just qualify. I just, when you hear that people have to qualify for a race, you assume it's like performance based, and it is for the pro athletes. But there's some crazy system about, like, you have to keep running like 100Ks and 100-milers and get tickets and put in bids in this lottery. Like, what?
Why does it take 10 years? Yeah.
Like, why have to keep doing trail running for 10 years? You're like, what?
So I think you have to think of it as the equivalent of just signing up for a race. Like it used to be like you could just register for Western States, right? When registration opened, you press the register button. Well, you used to mail your entries in, but you know what I'm saying. And then you press register. And then there got to be this point where like it was doing that thing where it was like people like filling up in 30 seconds, right? And so then they went to a lottery system because there were more people than spots. And so at first it was just like a regular lottery, right? Like everyone who wants to register puts their name in and they just pick out. But it's gotten more and more and more and more popular. And I'm talking, as I'm giving you like a brief history of like 52 years here, right? So it's gotten more and more and more popular. And so then they were like, well, the lottery was getting out of hand, and they realized that they wanted to, and I think this is up for debate and we can talk about it in a second, but they wanted to reward people who have been trying to get into this race for a really long time. So they developed this system where your lottery tickets double every year. So the first year you get 1 ticket, second year you get 2, 4, 8, 16, 30. So there were people this year who had like 564 tickets or whatever, whatever doubling for 8 years, right? 10 years is. And there were 60,000 tickets, or I would have to go and double check. It was like a crazy number of tickets. So it's like if you have one, like there was a girl who was 25, I like talked to her, who had one ticket in, like put it in just to start the process, and it got drawn, and she had like was like, oh shit. Like,
so you can get in on one,
right,
if you're like very, very lucky, but most people get in like once they've got like accumulated like 500 or
whatever,
something like
yeah,
that. Whatever, a larger number than one.
And the other thing is, in the last, let's say 5 to 7 years, like ultra running's exploded, trail running's exploded, right? So even that system was getting a little out of hand.
Right.
The one could argue it's just math. If you keep doubling everyone's tickets every year, like it's going to get out, right? There is no end to this, right? Like, how does that work?
That's like infinite.
Infinite, yeah.
Like that's like it's like it's like tickets to infinity, really. Like
really,
that's a interesting
quandary
way to have it work.
So the way they decided to handle that is that in order to continue, like to validate your lottery tickets every year, you have to do a qualifying race, which is basically 100K or 100-mile. Most people do 100Ks. And it's like, there's a list, but it's essentially anyone that's a real, like a race that's a certified race, right? So that then makes it that for these 10 years, if you want to keep putting in your tickets and having them double and double and double, every year you have to run 100K or you start back over, right? And so it's like, oh, that's a lot.
That's the part that I don't like. I feel like you should be able to run 100K one time and then have your tickets like double to infinity. Not like, and then you have to run 100K the next year and 100K or 100 miles the next year, etc.
And so there are two schools of thought, and I'm split. We talked to a lot of people this week, and I think people are a little... Yeah. There's one school of thought that's like, okay, you're rewarding the most dedicated runners who have spent 10 years trying, right? Like, sure. But then there's this other school of thought that's like, well, we want to make trail running more inclusive. It's very, very white. It was 27% women this year at Western States. And you're basically locking in historical issues now, right? So you're not eliminating barriers if every year somebody has to run another race and another race.
Right. Like you essentially have to have heard of trail running, know that it's a thing, have a ticket like 5 to 10 years ago to get in this year. Right. So yeah. I mean, it's interesting.
It's interesting. And there's all these other things like caveat, right? There's also the like, if you come in person, when they do the lottery draw, they draw a couple more in person, which of course favors locals, but I think they're okay with that because they like, it is still like they finish at a high school. Like I think they're okay with like a little bit favoring the local community.
Yeah.
And it's also capped. This is the other thing you thought was crazy when we got there. Because the race is so old, it would not be allowed to run now if they went and got the permits needed.
Right. Well, and right. So like obviously, so the permits got grandfathered in, basically.
So the permits got grandfathered in at about 375 runners.
Which is not very many people in a race, especially considering like how many media crews were there.
Right. I like texted you from the start and I was like, there are legitimately, I'm not exaggerating, more cameras than runners here. Like
the number of people doing media for like each individual, because you had a lot of like the elite athletes in the sport at this race, of course, right? So like they have their own like YouTube crew, and then there's like other separate, like all of the kind of podcasts or YouTube, I don't know what you call them, influencers, content creators. Like there was just a ton.
There was.
And then the race broadcast, of course.
And the race does a really good job broadcasting. Because there is, like you said, like a whole nother system for the best runners that is just like a pure, if you run the fastest, you earn an automatic entry. And that's even, equal number of men and women. Like there's a certain number of races that are called golden ticket. And then you just, it's like first, second, or third at certain races. And they do have a broadcast, which I thought was pretty good considering like we weren't getting cell reception in a lot of these places.
Yeah, it was crazy that they had a live broadcast that entire time because it's a long race and they had a drone out there for the whole thing. I have a question for you though.
Okay, I was gonna say I saw people complaining about the broadcast and I was like, guys.
Yeah. The fact that they even have a broadcast is amazing to me. Yeah. Okay, is this the race? This is like things I should have looked up before the podcast, but didn't. So if you don't have the answer, we're gonna have to hit pause and I'll Google it. But like, okay, is this the race where, because I know it used to be a horse race,
Yeah.
right? Like back in the day, and that horse race still exists just as a separate thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then there was like a year or something where like some guy's like horse was injured or something, so he decided to run
Right.
100 miles. And that's like, is that just lore, or is that, and
Is
is
that like
that
for
Western
real?
states
That
where that
is.
lore comes from?
There was a couple years early on that became like, could you do it faster by horse or by foot? And that was kind of the
Oh
origin
yeah.
of this. Yeah.
Okay, that is what I'm thinking of, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like there's some story, but
It's fine.
yeah.
There's,
Can the humans take on the horses?
Can the
Who
humans
was
take on the
faster, the humans or the horses?
That's a good question. We should go and relook it up because I feel like it was the people, but maybe I'm wrong. Now we're gonna have to Google and find out, or our
Okay.
listeners gonna have to tell us, or we should call Corinne back in and have her answer our questions. But
And follow-up
and
question.
follow up questions. So
Yeah.
I mean, I think she got at it's the combo of how hard it is to get in. It's a combo of this history. It is the oldest 100 mile. I mean, there may be like some very small like other 100 miles that are older, but it's like the oldest big one. You also it is also the combo of like the pro elite runners. There is no prize money still, but everyone has it built into their sponsor contracts, so they do win a good amount of money for winning. And so you do have, so it's like all of that combined together just makes it this like crazy thing that draws a lot of people. There were 369 runners this year. 100 of them were women, one non-binary runner. We talked to the oldest woman running, Diane Grimm, 65 years old, and she had gotten in, and this was going to be her first 100 mile. And she was kind of nervous.
She was nervous about running. She was also so amazingly energetic about trail running. Like I almost wanted to start trail running because I'm excited for everyone who's about to listen to about to like pick up her vibes right now and listen to this interview.
Diane Grimm, 65. You're the oldest female runner tomorrow. But I just found out you just started running when you were 50. What prompted you?
I used to be a cyclist, so I did road racing and cyclocross. So cyclocross kind of was, you rode your bike, you jumped over barriers, and then you had to run. And so it was a natural progression into trail running. That's how I thought. And then you were mountain biking, and you got the flow of the terrain and the roll of the trails. And all of a sudden, when you're out there trail running, it's like, oh, this is just like mountain biking, except there's no coasting. So it was just to experience the flow of the trails and being out in the woods it was easy transition.
You're saying your husband was like, oh yeah, let's just do this race. And then you decided to start like, oh, I can run 4 miles, might as well run 6. Tell us about the first running race you did.
Oh, it was called the Chili Cheeks. It was done by Pretzel City Sports. And so you started off and you ran down like crushed gravel, and then you hit this big bushwhacking section where people were just like ants, army ants, crawling up the embankment. And I hit that part, and I was just like da 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 da, and I just started like passing people and just digging into the dirt in my nails and clawing through, and it was just so exciting. And then like halfway through, I was like, I said to this guy, "Are we last?" He goes, "No, we're killing it," and I'm like, "Woo!" Yeah. So it was just, and then I got to the end, and I was just like, I'm hooked. The adrenaline rush was just crazy, and to be out there, I was like, I might have been 50, but I was 10 inside. Okay. So you're only as old as you want to be. So when you're out there in the woods and you're doing bird calls and jumping over rocks and roots and splashing through creeks, it's like my mom would have been so proud of me. Yeah, it's just a happy place for me. And people that, if you grew up in that environment and going back to it, your whole soul is renewed. It's just like this rebirth, and for somebody that's never been in the woods, just go out and try it. Because, it's a joy. Yeah, it's just wonderful. It's just like, it's refreshing.
How did you get into this position where you're doing your first 100-mile at Western State?
Well, I was fortunate enough to what is it called? The Running Mullet podcast. I was on it as an interview for doing the Black Forest 100K, and it was my first DNF. So it's the first time I ever didn't finish a race. So they had me on as far as what inspired me and what kept me going. And through that, I was discovered and was given a position as a Hokard outreach racer. So that's how I'm here. Okay. So I owe a huge shout out to Hoka and Trail Sisters, and just for seeing what women of my age can do, and that maybe through me I can inspire someone, as I was inspired by my peers or people that I looked up to, that anything is possible. And in my first 100, I'm pretty scared. I think I'm more nervous and more excited, and but it doesn't matter, because every step forward is a step closer to that goal. And I have an amazing crew of women. It's women supporting women, and that's what it's all about. So the role of a crew, they're like my lifeline. So I'll come into, it's like a pit stop, like a NASCAR. I hope it's that fast. So you come into the aid station, and you hit the sponsored aid station, and then you see your crew. And your crew is going to give you all your little niceties. They'll replenish my water. They'll put ice in my bag. We have massage sticks. They'll work out my kinks in my legs. They'll change my socks and shoes. And actually, I wear ankle braces, so I've actually put little threads where they're going to match up my shoelaces to the eyelet, because I'm not going to waste any time. So if they know the exact fit of my brace, I'm in and out like Flynn. So the idea is to get me in, take care of me, and send me out. And I actually have one of my crew is running the stopwatch. So I've actually figured in how much time I need at each aid station, and they're going to kick me out. So she'll give me a 1-minute warning, 30-second warning, because time is money.
What is the time limit that you have on aid stations?
Well, it's whatever you decide.
What is yours?
So I figured into my plan maybe 3 minutes at regular stops, and maybe like 8 minutes to 10 minutes at like major stops. Okay. But the longer you are in an aid station, the faster you have to run. So, run smart. If you can't run fast, run smart. Take that 100 miles and break it down. I broke it down into 4 sections. Okay. So I only have to do a 50K, and then that's over. And then I do another 50K. I got good at the first one, I do a second one. And then when that one's over, I got a 20-miler. Okay. So looking at the 100 miles at one shot might be too much for me, and at my age I can't really remember anything. So breaking it down into these little sections it's little races. I only got 4 little races.
There you go. All right, and then last, for other people who are looking to pick up running in their 40s, 50s, 60s, what advice do you have for them?
Get out there and start. Okay. Yeah, just get off the couch. Somebody says, "Oh, I'm last." I'm like, "No, you're not last. Last place person is still home sitting on the couch." So I don't care if you get out there at 40 years old and do a 5K. Even if you have to run, walk. That's the way to do it. That's what I'm going to do for my 100. I'm going to run and walk. But the idea is to just get out there and start. And the easiest way to do that is with a friend. Because going into that unknown alone is scary. But if you have somebody that's going to experience that with you, you have power. You have a confidence. You feed off of each other. And I think that's the main goal, is to share the experience. Just like I'm sharing it with my crew. I can't be more excited because it's our story. It's whether I'm the runner, the crewer, and you're a 45-year-old that is going on their first 5K with a whole group of girls in your tutus and your great matching shirts. It's all about the story. So just getting it accomplished that's what it's about.
All right, so that was us talking to Diane before, and I feel like people want an update She did have to pull out halfway,
Oh
which is like,
no.
I know, but it was really hot. I will say that it was hot.
It was really hot, and there was quite a few people who had to pull out too.
Yeah,
I mean, as happens in every 100 miler, I think, but this in particular was quite
it was like
warm.
a 23% DNF rate, something like that. So.
Right.
So I'm sure she'll be back out there. I'm sure. And I do want to give a shout out though. There was the first Indonesian woman to finish, Rini Sugianto, which is awesome. Like last year was the first hijabi woman to finish.
Yeah.
And so it's just nice to like, you know, again, like get some different people out there.
Yeah.
Because then they can go back to their communities and be like, hey, start running now, and in 10 years you can do this.
Hey, I heard about this really amazing thing that you could spend 10 years of your life trying to qualify for if you run 100K to 100 miles at a qualifying race every year. It's amazing.
It's amazing. I was surprised. There were a lot. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have been surprised. It is pretty international these days. Like the top 10 women was very international.
I was surprised by that too, honestly. Yeah. Like that it's not this niche American sport anymore that like really, and even amongst the women, there were a lot of folks from different countries at the elite level too.
Yeah. And so we have kind of hinted though that we went up for the whole week because we just can't get enough of ultra running. But it's partially because there was a whole conference kind of before, like leading in to Western States weekend. There's a trail running conference. And then there's also this thing, and maybe other people, maybe I'm like telling all you listeners something you already know. I don't know. But a lot of big races have medical conferences right before. Like Kona does this with Ironman, where like all of those sports doctors and experts come together and like share research on extreme endurance and all this other stuff. And then they volunteer for the race, or they are the medical crew for the race. So they do that at Western States too. And they also have research projects running during the race,
which is cool, right? Because it's like the real on the ground research happening.
Yeah.
Urine samples are being taken, Kelly.
Urine samples are being taken. There was a part of me though that was like, if somebody tried to stop me and ask me questions in the middle of a race.
Honestly, I mean, we're going to hear what Megan and Emily have to say, but I was like, they seem to be like, oh, if people can volunteer to give their urine,
right?
And I'm like, I would rather give my urine before and after the race, although after the race it might take a while, than be stopped in the middle of the race to ask what I've eaten over the last like 30, 40, 50, 60 miles. Like, I don't know. I ate all the things I could from my crew.
So we talked to doctors Megan Roach and Emily Krause, who are the medical research directors for Western States.
So we are here at Western States, and there's research happening in the background, like some sports science. Like, what does it mean to do research at Western States?
Well, Western States was the origin of research in ultramarathons. So it's been going on for a long time. Yeah. And Megan and I have been medical research directors for about 4 years now. And so we've been able to get involved in both data collection and research, but also help facilitate others to collect data and do research.
And it's been awesome too, because runners are great research participants because they're like on time, they show up, they're really motivated for science. And so we've done a number of research studies, and it's awesome to conduct research at Western States because it's like people are passionate about it. And so every year we've had a number of participants who are like eager to contribute to science on things like bone health and cardiovascular health and nutrition and metabolism and heat. And honestly, there's just so much that goes into training and health of ultra athletes that there's a lot to study. Yeah, it's really cool. And also it's cool too because like science translates into health, and like I feel like the findings here of like doing an extreme event also translate into medicine too. So it's very cool.
That's so cool. Okay, so what are some of the fun findings that you've had from the past?
Ooh. Yeah, we're like, we're on the spot. Yeah, we can start first with like relative energy deficiency in sport research. So looking at low energy availability, and we've done that here in both male and female athletes, and just seeing really high prevalences of relative energy deficiency in sport, and then also looking at how that impacts bone density and how that relates to fueling strategies and things like that. And so, just identifying this as a key area, and also recognizing too that a lot of these athletes, like there's a study done by Keely Henninger, who's racing here at Western States, like 50% of athletes these trail athletes aren't even taking in enough calories per hour during long runs and training. And so just trying to provide like a lot of education on that.
In that same group, we also collected ferritin levels, so measures of iron stores, and we were shocked to find how many female runners specifically were at below 30 range of ferritin levels, which is really low and iron deficient, and thinking about how that might impact performance and just overall fatigability during these big races. So thinking about very basic things that these athletes can do, like supplement with iron, and thinking about their diet a little bit differently is so valuable, and giving that information and translating that information every year.
Yeah, especially up here at altitude too. Like we weren't even allowed to go to altitude training camps unless our ferritin was a certain level, right? So like you said that folks could take iron pills. Like what would people do to have a better performance then? Eat more? Take iron pills? Is that basically?
Maybe a little bit of both.
I think like especially getting your blood drawn is really important too, and like understanding where you are if you're going to supplement. And I think the hard part about our research was it was sad in many ways because we were measuring it like 3 days before the race and seeing low values. And we're like, we should have done this 4 or 5 months ago. And I think it's like
tell them.
Yeah, right. It's like understanding that timeline of when we're drawing the ferritin and when you're like being conscious of that. So I also think it feeds into heat training too, which we just had a presentation on here today. Is I think athletes with low ferritin levels should be really cautious with heat training, which is something that's in biking and cycling world and running right now. A lot of athletes are doing both active and passive heat, so thinking about that too.
Another thing that we found was related to, we just lost it. The variety of female athletes. Female athletes were on hormonal contraception. They were peri or postmenopausal. So certain factors and certain parts of the survey that we were asking about menstrual cycle, we couldn't really get that information on. So it just highlighted this gap in the research and opportunity for more research in those certain subpopulations of females on hormonal contraception and the peri-postmenopausal woman.
Yeah. And isn't that really what it's all about? Like the female athlete has so many different things, like life cycle, there's like different types of birth control or regular cycling woman. Like there's just a lot of different variables and factors, right, that has to be handled in the research. So you guys are doing a great job of starting to unpack that. What's happening this year?
Yeah, this year we've got 2 studies actually, which is awesome. One measuring total energy expenditure with a novel, it's like a really cool process actually, where they have runners ingest doubly labeled water to measure the amount of caloric burn that the athletes are having during Western States, and seeing like we expect to see pretty high numbers, probably in the range of like 9,000 to 16,000 calories burned during Western States. And that has implications for how we think about like recovering. It's really important. These events are so taxing on the body that it's important for bone health, for metabolism, for overall recovery processes to really respect that race. And so both looking at the energy expenditure during the race and then in the 7 days following the race too. And then Emily, do you want to talk about the heat training?
Yeah. And then they're also doing the bone biomarkers as part of that, which is really cool that they're collecting this information on bone, which we don't have the information as far as like what's the bone breakdown. And so I think that'll be really valuable both during and after. And then the other study, because there's 2 studies, is more related to heat training and GI distress and hydration. And so
what every woman wants to know, honestly, in the endurance world.
Right. And so there are 2 parts to it. There's a questionnaire, a pre-race questionnaire. So certain athletes might just share information on what their heat training strategies are, what their fueling strategies are. And then there's an opt-in part of the study where you can give your urine pre-race, and they can get an indication of hydration status and a few other factors that can be valuable information. And then they'll ask questions during the race to assess GI distress, what they're fueling during the race, and then they'll do another post-race urine analysis as well. So I think that there's just a lot of really important information, and people are wanting to know how they can fuel, how much they can fuel, what is the limit of that. And both of these studies are really helping them understand and helping these athletes just train smarter and better.
And I think it's going to be really cool too, because right now we're having athletes push higher carbohydrate totals during training and racing, which is awesome in many ways, but also balancing that with GI distress. And I think one question that we have as researchers is there a sex-based difference in that? Like, are male and female athletes able to oxidize similar levels of carbohydrates to the point that like our fueling recommendations are similar for male and female athletes? And so hoping that this study kind of launches the field and contributes to more of that research, looking at the differences between male and female athlete fueling too.
Okay, Sarah, I have to tell you, so people should know, I dropped Sarah off at 4 a.m. and she started hiking up the mountain to get to the top before the runners got there. And then I like wandered around the village looking for like snacks. And I saw them collecting the urine samples. Like they had taken over.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Well, I didn't like watch the people pee, but they had taken.
Yes. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks for that clarification.
Anytime. But they had taken over kind of one of the lobbies of one of the hotels, like rooms, and runners would come in. They like register their information. They like get a little thing. They go and pee. You also swallowed a core temperature pill. And then and then it was like all being collected there, which was super interesting. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. I had something to say, but I totally forget now.
One of the things, like obviously, I'm assuming our audience like knows a little bit about some of them. Maybe we're telling them things they already know. But one of the big topics at this kind of presentation of this information, and it's been a big topic in running and cycling and triathlon lately, has been this whole carb question, which Megan kind of hinted at the end there. Yeah, that like the question is like, how many carbs can you take in an hour? How much are you actually using versus just sitting in your stomach? Does that change in these conditions? And does it change for women and men? I think it's I was actually surprised that we like don't know that yet.
Yeah. Are we surprised at this point? But I was, okay, so yeah, between the lines and what they're saying, because it's like, as scientists, you have this tension between the things that have already been studied, and you can say, and there's like studies, and then they've been peer reviewed, and then there's another study that you can say with confidence is true, right? So we listened to the presentation before we went and talked to Megan and Emily, and the, somewhere between 60 and 90 grams of carbs seems to be per hour during endurance racing seems to be like what the science is saying we can absorb as humans.
Right. The word is oxidize. But we know, whenever they say oxidize, they basically just mean use. Oh. Yeah. I feel like
oxidize. But we know, like anything, like even myself from having been an elite athlete and having a coach who is a sports scientist, right, is that like the real testing ground is with the elite athletes themselves. So we were often trying things like I'd be at altitude camp trying like lots of carbs, little carbs, like all kinds of different things. I can tell you that like, so the athletes now in real time are like trying to push that edge of like the carbohydrate, like how much they can intake.
It was
right. And I think there's,
well, no, I was thinking about what you're saying, and it was, if you know some of the dynamics happening here, Megan's husband, David Roach, was in the pro field, and he ended up dropping out with a knee injury. We actually saw him kind of like right after he dropped out. He has been pushing the edge of like how many carbs you can take an hour. He's doing like 120, 140. And he's talked about this when he set the Leadville course record last year. And he's talked about it very openly, like on their YouTube and on their podcast, which is a really good listen if you're like super into the science. And so they were doing this presentation saying like, oh, we found, like we did all these studies with double labeled water, you can only oxidize like 60 an hour. And Megan's like, well, my husband's experimenting with a lot more. Literally
like with more than double that. Yeah.
So it's like kind of funny. And she said that, right? Like that is like the athletes are trying things that there isn't necessarily proof for yet, but.
Yeah, and I can tell you, like, from all my years of Ironman racing, I am aware that there is a performance factor that's based on, like, how much carbohydrate you can absorb or oxidize without having GI distress, which is the counterbalance point, right? And if you're someone who is able to oxidize a lot, you're going to have a performance advantage over the long run, right? So like not in the first even 3-4 hours, but further down the road. So like running a marathon off the bike, for example, you have an advantage if you can take in 120 grams of carbohydrate on the bike per hour, or more if you're a bigger dude, right? Depending on your size and stuff. And so like we kind of know that. Like I don't know how much exactly like of that we're absorbing because that's the work that
Right.
they do. But like if you're able to like take in and handle more, you're going to run faster. So I think that's where like the elite athletes are trying to push a limit, and the science is like, what do we know about this, or are there certain types of carbs we could take to push that limit, or like asking all of the questions like, does hydration status affect how much carbs you can, and you can oxidize and then like, or does like age or sex differences come into play
And
too?
I was telling you when we were there that like, because I've gone on this whole recently, and like one of the things that's interesting is the official recommendations don't vary by body size, which is super odd.
Oh, that's
yeah,
weird to me.
But that's like the official recommendations per, Gatorade Sports Science Institute, like
Right.
pick your nutrition, is that 30 grams an hour for exercise under 2 hours, 60 grams for exercise over 2 hours, right? Like those are the official, and it doesn't change, which is super weird because we know that like body size affects how much you put out. So that's again is like one of those things where like there's things we know, and then there's like what we're learning in these extreme environments.
Yeah, I gotta say something that's like wild speculation, but here we go. Like if you go back to the early days of when I first started Ironman, right? You have like the champions were like, the women were like tiny. Like you had like Laurie Bowden and Natasha Badman and Lisa Bentley. Like they were like very small humans, right? So part of me is like, oh, and we didn't have the nutrition products that provide like more easily absorbable carbohydrate. So part of me is like, oh, like is it possible they didn't need as much? Right. And so that was part of their, and a lot of them were like really good runners too, like ran off the bike faster than, and then you have this like next generation that came through of like the swim bikers, and like you have a lot of sort of taller, stronger, naturally bigger, quote unquote, like women who have become like the modern day champions, right? So like, did our nutrition products just evolve, and did it like allow for like more people to absorb more carbohydrate regardless of that?
And you're seeing that a lot on the men's side too, especially in like cycling or triathlon, where like there are what would
absolutely
like, historically bigger guys putting down huge energy expenditures and huge amounts of
and being able to do that for like a full day or days on top of days.
Speaking of the pros, there was also, I feel like we've talked about all this craziness, there was also a very high profile pro race happening, and it was dramatic because there was going to be a new champion this year on the women's side, because all the returning champions were out for like different reasons, doing other things, and so we like knew there was going to be someone new. And I have to tell you, so Abby Hall ended up winning. Abby Hall, spoiler, Abby Hall won in a fourth fastest time ever. It was only like, she went 16 hours, 37 minutes. It was only a couple years ago that a woman ever even like broke 16 hours. I was looking it up, like 10 years ago, 19 hours won.
That's wild. A wild increase in like performance over such a short time. Like holy moly.
And I think they were ahead of course record pace for a long time, and then I think just like where the heat got, like I think the heat hit them hard because the front women were in the canyons during the height of the day, and that's hottest, that's like where it gets really hot, so they fell off course. But anyway, it's still like a very exciting race. And I think one of the things, and Corinne kind of hinted at this, that people should know about Abby is that she did not earn a golden ticket she tried twice and just missed out, and so wasn't going to be racing this year. And then another runner got pregnant, and Western States has a very generous pregnancy policy in the world of sports. If you can come back anytime in the future and run again if you're pregnant.
Sorry, can we just say, what a great pregnancy deferral program. Hello, other sports. That's amazing.
And then they also just roll the spot down to the next person. So when this athlete was like, hey, I got pregnant, I'm not going to use my golden ticket this year, it rolled down to Abby Hall. She like, obviously it's trail running, they all know each other. She like called her up, which is crazy. So she only got this spot because somebody else pregnancy deferred, and she fucking ends up winning. And that's crazy.
And she won the race.
Crazy. And
and honestly, just sorry, back to my previous thing. Thank you to the pregnancy
Right.
deferral
I was like,
program,
what's
right?
the whole thing? Like, this doesn't just this benefits everybody, right? Like, it makes
benefits everybody. And now we have a new winner.
And so I will tell you, I was like, came home and I was telling my husband, I was like, nobody knew she was going to win. Everybody was like, oh yeah, she's good. Maybe she'll get 7th or 8th. Like, she was leading the whole day. When we saw her, I turned to somebody and I was like, who is that leading? And they were like, oh, she'll end up like 7th or 8th, right? Like, that was kind of, if she has a good race, she'll be top 10. I got home and my husband was like, oh, Abby Hall? No, she's really good. I knew she would win. I was like, what? Like, what?
Steve had the inside information.
So anyway, the reason people weren't sure is because she broke her leg 2 years ago and had like massive surgery, had complications, had like a blood clot develop in her calf, coming back to surgery. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, she sprained her ankle. She like came down weird on her knee and like broke her tibia. And so it's been 2 years come back. And she's had a hard time at some other hundreds miles. Like, she's been better at a little bit shorter. So this was like a really big deal, is my point, for a lot of people to see her out there running like 5 hours faster than the last time she was here 4 years ago is crazy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, amazing. And I got to see her in the finish shoot, like hugging her husband. I got to meet her mom, who went out to greet her. So that's like, I feel like that's just part of like the vibe of the trail running. Like, I'm just there shooting a video and her mom's just standing beside me waiting for her daughter to come in. That was really cool. And I think, Kelly, like you and I think we had the same reaction. We like a little bit fell in love with the second place winner.
Oh yeah. Well, before we talk about second place, I feel like we should hear from Abigail, because you did get up close and get a clip with her. And it is a little hard. I want to tell everybody, it is a little hard to hear because people are like cheering in the background and stuff while the race announcers are doing the interview. But I just want you to hear from her because she was just like so excited.
Welcome back to the Finish Channel 2025 Western States 100. We are joined by women's champion Abby Hall here. Fourth fastest time in Western States history. Abby Hall, the easiest and most profound question. What does it feel like to be a Western States champion?
It is absolutely, I mean, it was not that long ago that I was here in 2021 running like 22 or 23 hours or whatever it was. And I don't know, those failures along the way played a big role today to getting here.
I was talking to someone before you were finishing and we said, man, Abby wasn't supposed to be here. I.e., you didn't get a golden ticket at Black Canyon. You didn't get a golden ticket at Chianti. All of a sudden, MK Sullivan gives you a call and says, hey, I'm pregnant and my ticket's rolling to you. It felt like serendipity or kismet, and I think it's, in a way, I think that Katie asked me to say this, that you were meant to be here, even if you initially weren't supposed to be here. I wonder what it means to have gotten that opportunity to do what you just did.
The quote I kept repeating to myself and thinking of this whole week was something like, what's for you will find you. And I really have felt like I was meant to be here. I pushed through 2 hard golden ticket events, and I just feel so fortunate the way that it worked out with the ticket roll down. Yeah, it's really surreal.
You sort of shared that story with the audience throughout the broadcast here today. How you were sort of flying high at the top of the sport and then came crashing down with a really serious injury that's taken a long time to come back from. Speak to the people out there who are struggling themselves. Give them a little hope that you can still return literally to the top of the sport, even when you are at rock bottom.
I mean, you have to keep the dream alive through thick and thin, through the dark times, through the moments where no one's watching. That is the stuff that makes the days like this. I really believe that with my whole heart. So to anyone out there who is going through their own version of that, I mean, I see you, I relate in my own way, and like, keep going, keep seeing it through, keep hoping and believing, and yeah, and keep your love for, like, if we're talking in the context of sport, like, keep your love for the sport at the forefront, and that will never lead you astray.
Your
Western States Women's Champion, Abby Hall.
All right, Sarah, you were saying before we wanted to hear from Abby. We did fall a little bit in love with second place, Fu Hao from China. She was second last year too, but that's not why we loved her. We were in, okay, I feel like this needs preference. We were in the Forest Hill aid station, which is this massive aid station at like 60 miles. There's probably like 1,000 people there. It's a scene. And every time a runner comes in, they're surrounded by like 20 people running with them, cameras, pacers. It's like chaos. And she just got to her crew and sat down and had a bowl of noodles.
Right. So exactly. It's also like it's a crew pit stop, right? So we had already seen like a number of men come through, right? And generally the vibe was, and we saw people come after her. Like a lot of people didn't sit down. First of all, a lot of them, some people did, but a lot of them were like kept standing, which honestly, after 62 miles, like if I sat down, I would never get up again. So I feel that. But like a lot of people just came in, like put ice on me, like just like stood there. The crew was around them. But Fu Zhao just there in her chair eating noodles. She's eating noodles. She's talking. Her crew is like giving her a foot massage and changing her socks and shoes at the same time. And like it was, I was just like, this is how you want it. And I honestly thought like that could be her winning.
Oh, yeah.
Like that could be so clutch that it puts her into the win, which it didn't. She looked for a little while like she was kind of gaining a little bit on Abby.
Yeah, she was gaining time for sure.
Yeah.
She
love her.
Well, someone's ringing my doorbell, which is really annoying. I'm ignoring them because we have to talk about ultra running. But I was gonna say she was in third when we saw her. She did move up into second. She was closing, but yeah, I mean she didn't. But then she crossed the line. She went back and like thanked her crew and had them run back across the line with her. She just seemed like she was having fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you know what I really absorbed. Like this goes back to like Diane's interview, the oldest runner that we spoke to that was earlier in the podcast, and then Hu Zhao. Like the people who are smiling and clearly just like love the trail, they love running. Their inner dialogue is clearly very positive in terms of like they love what they're doing. They're happy to be out there. Now I'm putting things in their head, but whatever. I'm assuming they feel like grateful, for being able to be part of this, being healthy enough to do it. Like I really think that goes a long way when you're running 100 miles.
True. I will say, and I feel like it came up a weird amount of times while we were there, only because, we're trying to like establish our credentials. So I've done 100K on this same course. It's like a very popular one around here.
I feel like that gives you lots of credentials, by the way.
Thank you.
That's a long way.
So I just kept thinking about that though, in these aid stations and stuff where like we had hiked in 2 miles and then I had like, I was like about to pass out, right? And I was remembering, doing much shorter distance and just dying. And I was like, God, how would you maintain, because you're out there by yourself. This race also has fewer runners than the one I did because of the permitting thing. And so like you're out there by yourself most of the time.
Yeah.
You have to like talk to yourself into things, you have to be like, keep going. Like it just sounds, I can fathom it in like a way that then makes me be like, I never want to do this. Right.
Yeah. I'm like just watching the first 3 women, like I know they must have had moments out there, like when they were like all even Fu Zhao smiling away, must have had moments of like, why am I doing this, or this is hard, or like they're they must have, but like all 3 of them were on a mission,
right?
Like when we saw people come through, it was like they were in the zone, like they were holding for like 16-17 hours, holding on to like moving forward, doing this thing, like just in the zone. That's whoops, sorry if I made a noise on the mic there. Like that's what I was so inspired by. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's crazy. And it goes for 30 hours. And the last woman finished like 4 minutes before the cutoff. I mean, people still finish after 30 hours, but you're not counted as like official then. You don't get like a belt buckle. And yeah, to your point, like we came home, we slept, I got up, I showered, and I looked at my watch and I was like, people are finishing right now.
Yeah. It's going through the night is hard to get my head around. Like you start a race at 5 a.m. one day and finish at 11 a.m. the next day.
I got really hung up on so we went down to the river crossing, and there is a whole safety crew and a like rope that you hold on to across the river, and there's a safety crew like in the water, like they're waist deep, like holding on to the rope to like help people, because some of these,
And it was fast moving water.
It was fast
right?
moving because it's like snow
It
melt.
was a safety issue. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's like a lot of international runners who like maybe aren't as comfortable with like the river crossing. Anyway, that was fine at 2 p.m. or 4 p.m., 5 p.m. when we were there, and it's hot. That safety crew is in the water overnight. I mean, they swap out people, but that's got to be unpleasant. That's what I kept thinking. I was like,
I was thinking about that. Like, obviously, they probably swap out the people.
Yeah.
And I did at one point see, like, because they had a boat also that went kind of like back and forth across the river crossing. And I saw people like delivering burgers to volunteers, like like in the boat, right? But yeah, like spending several hours, I'm assuming then overnight, maybe in a wetsuit. Like, it's fine when it's like over 30 degrees, whatever that is in Fahrenheit, like 85 degrees.
Oh, it was 95 down in the canyon for sure. Yeah.
Okay. It was 95 degrees. You're in the water. You're feeling good. But then dark comes. It's cold. Like, it's hard to even imagine volunteering, let alone doing this race, to be honest, Kelly.
That's what we took away. That's
yes.
That was our moment. All right. We are going next week. We will not be all about one thing. We're going to talk about multiple sports next week.
Yeah. We are.
But to close this out, Sarah, what was your favorite, I don't know, pick your feistiest athlete, your feistiest moment, your favorite thing from the week? Because we were there for a long time. We were there for a while.
Oh, my feistiest moment. I think we've already said it, though.
I
was like so taken by Fuzhou and the noodle eating that I'm just going to have to go with that. I'm sorry. I'm like taking the easy road out. But like, I honestly, like I think a lot of people like don't stop to do that. And I think that that's really important. Like having real food in your gut. Even I can know this from my endurance experience. Like having real food in your gut, talking to your crew, having a plan. Like they clearly were like, okay, this person's on feet.
Right.
this person's on noodles. Like someone else is talking to her. That just like warmed my heart.
Okay. It's all a blur. I'm like sitting here thinking now. It's all a blur from the 5 days. I'm gonna say we were down at the river crossing, and because our audience will appreciate this, Des Linden, the Boston Marathon winner, was pacing someone, and she picked them up in Forest Hills. She stopped at the river, so that's a little under 20 miles, and she got there and she just walked like straight into the cold water, and was like, "Never let me do that again." So. And I was like, I feel that. I feel like even Des Linden was like, this is too hot and too hard.
Yeah. Like for us, even having we did not run 20 miles to get to the cold river. We walked like
2 miles,
4, maybe 3 to 4 miles. And yet I went straight into the cold river. Yeah. So every runner who arrived there, I felt for. I loved watching them cross. And it was like, imagine doing a running race in the middle of the race and you're at mile 78. Mile 78. Take that in. And then you're you have to hold on to this rope. And if you don't hold on, you're going to get thrown downstream into some rapids. And you may, if you're scared, you had an option to have a life jacket on. Your pacer's just there hanging onto the rope with you. So that was wild.
It's wild. So that was our experience this week. We brought everything from Western States. It was interesting trail running vibes. It's still it's growing, but it's still I think grassroots is the word people would use. Yeah,
it's definitely, you can see where the sport is growing. There was pretty major corporate sponsorship going on in the in the ski resort, which I think will probably grow over the years too. It's coming.
But there's still people doing mushrooms out of vans in the parking lot. So, it's still got the dirt bag. Yeah.
Got invited to a tattoo party, and I thought it was going to be stick-on tattoos, but no, they were tattooing people in the parking lot. So very trail running vibes.
Yeah, we did not get tattoos.
I did not get a tattoo in the parking lot. No.
All right, we will see you all next week when we will talk about not running, other things than running.